Welcome to Case and Conspiracy. Deep beneath the waves lie secrets that continue to defy explanation, even in 2025. These are 5 ocean mysteries that science still can't fully crack. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Number 5, June 19, 2011. The research vessel Anselus is dragging a side-scan sonar across the northern Baltic Sea, about 40 kilometers off the Swedish coast, in the middle of the Bothnian Sea. The team, Ocean X, led by Dennis Osberg and Peter Lindberg, is hunting for shipwrecks loaded with century-old champagne. What flashes across their screen instead stops every conversation on the bridge. A perfect circle, 60 meters in diameter, razor-straight edges. A 300-meter-long breaking or skid mark leading straight up to it, as if something enormous slid across the seabed and came to a dead stop. Next to the main disk is a smaller, mushroom-shaped pillar 8 meters tall. The entire formation sits on a plateau of sediment that looks artificially flattened. Lindbergh's first words, captured on tape. "That's not a rock. That's something else." The sonar image goes viral within days. The internet instantly dubs it the Baltic Sea UFO. First dive, summer 2012. The moment the divers drop below 60 meters, every piece of electrical equipment within 200 meters begins to fail. Cameras black out, floodlights die, satellite phones go dead, even mechanical pressure gauges spin wildly. The only gear that still works is old-fashioned scuba equipment with no electronics. Diver Stefan Hogeborn later tells Swedish radio, "It felt like the thing didn't want us there." When they finally reach the object at 91 meters, they find surfaces that look machined. Black, a glass-like material that feels almost warm to the touch. Straight lines and 90-degree corners impossible in natural basalt or granite. A set of stairs descending into the sediment. Perfectly rectangular depressions that resemble ventilation shafts. One diver places his bare hand on the surface and swears he feels a faint vibration, like a distant engine idling. They chip off samples. The fragments are sent to 4 separate laboratories: Stockholm University, Uppsala University, the Weizmann Institute in Israel, and a private lab in Germany. The results, leaked in 2013 and still not fully refuted. The main body contains limonite and goethite, normal, but also significant quantities of titanium, manganese, and traces of metals that one analyst described as not naturally alloyed in that configuration. Microscopic burn marks and vitrification, glass-like melting on the surface, suggest exposure to temperatures above 1,200 degrees for a very short time, something that does not happen on the cold Baltic seabed. A 30-centimeter thick coral-like growth covers parts of the object, but radiocarbon dating of the growth places it at only 1,400 years old, meaning whatever is underneath is far older than the covering. Geologists invited to explain it offer the official line: a glacial deposit, a moraine dropped by retreating ice 14,000 years ago. But when pressed on the 90-degree corners and the 300-meter skid trail, most fall back to unusual natural fracturing. Dr. Martin Jakobsen of Stockholm University, one of the few scientists who has actually seen the high-resolution data, admitted in a 2016 interview, "I have never seen a natural formation that looks like this. I cannot explain the straight lines. Compasses and magnetometers behave strangely. The needle spins in slow circles within a 200-meter radius, as if the object is generating a localized magnetic anomaly stronger than the Earth's own field in that spot." In 2022, a Finnish research submersible tried to plant a permanent beacon on the site. The ROV lost all power 180 meters away and drifted lifeless to the surface. The crew recovered it. The hard drive was completely wiped. In 2023, Ocean X returned with new funding and better gear, fiber optic tethers that don't rely on wireless signals. They managed the clearest footage yet. A perfectly circular hatch-like ring on the upper surface, 2 meters across, with what appeared to be radial spokes. When they tried to lower a small drone into one of the rectangular openings, the live feed showed the walls inside lined with a black, metallic-looking substance that reflected light in a way no natural mineral does. Then the cable was severed, cleanly, as if cut by something with jaws. The drone was never recovered. As of December 2025, the Baltic Sea Anomaly remains exactly where it was found. No nation claims jurisdiction serious enough to fund a proper archaeological or military recovery mission, because officially it's just a rock. Permits are almost impossible to obtain. The Swedish Navy quietly monitors the site with passive sonar and has classified most of its data. Dennis Osberg, now 63 and half blind from decades of deep diving, still keeps the original sonar printout taped above his desk. His last public statement, recorded 3 months ago. "I've spent my life looking for wrecks made by men. Whatever this is, it wasn't made by us, and it's waiting down there for someone brave enough or stupid enough to open it." The Baltic Sea is cold, dark, and only 55 meters deep on average. Yet 91 meters beneath its surface sits an object that has broken every tool we've thrown at it for 14 years. Science says it's natural. Every piece of evidence we actually have says something else. And until someone drags it up, or it decides to move on its own, the anomaly will remain the most perfectly preserved secret on the planet. Number 4. The Bloop, revisited South Pacific. West of Point Nemo, the loneliest stretch of water on the planet. Summer 1997. A Cold War network of underwater microphones built to track submarines suddenly screams awake. One sound, 1 minute long. So low it vibrates bone before it reaches the ear. So powerful it is picked up by sensors 5,000 kilometers apart. It starts as a deep, rising moan, almost mournful, then snaps into a metallic, guttural roar before it stops dead. NOAA gives it the least frightening name they can think of: Bloop. For years, the public is told it was ice. A giant iceberg cracking and scraping the seafloor somewhere off Antarctica. Neat, clean, wrong. Because the new century brings better ears, permanent cabled observatories, neutrino detectors. Private arrays paid for by people who hate loose ends. They feed the original 1997 recording into modern algorithms, and the icequake story collapses in slow motion. The true source sits in open water, 1,700 kilometers from the nearest ice shelf, in a patch of ocean that hasn't seen floating ice in 250,000 years. The waveform is layered with harmonics no geological event has ever produced. There are repeating patterns inside it, almost a phrase, like a signature. And the worst part, it happens again. Fainter echoes in 2003, 2008, then twice in 2023. Always the same spot. Always the same voice. Whatever made the bloop never left. It just got quiet when we were listening too hard. 2024. Dewar Marine drops a manned sub to the coordinates. 4,800 meters down. They drift into a warm plume, nearly 2 degrees above the surrounding abyss, 40 kilometers wide, rising like slow breath. The external mics pick up a new rhythm, a low, perfect click every 47 seconds. Steady as a heart the size of Manhattan. Then the sonar blooms with a single return, something longer than an aircraft carrier, moving at 60 knots at crush depth. The pilot slams the ascent. As they rocket upward, the clicking stops. The massive target simply disappears from every screen. 6 months later, a Chinese research ship loses a $40 million deep tow array in the exact same patch of water. They haul the broken cable back. The steel is sliced clean and the cut edges are glass smooth, flash melted. Welded into the metal are tiny flakes of iron-nickel with isotope ratios that belong to no meteorite cataloged on Earth. Sailors crossing the region at night now report a new phenomenon. A pale green circle half a kilometer wide that glows just under the surface for exactly 52 seconds, the precise length of the original bloop, then vanishes. Infrared satellites have caught it twice. Whatever is down there runs warm. The most recent detection came March 14, 2025. Same place, same rising cry. Only this time the pitch had dropped another fraction, as if the thing has kept growing. NOAA's public page still calls it unidentified, likely ice-related. The Navy no longer answers questions. The newest raw files are classified higher than nuclear launch codes. Point Nemo is the graveyard where we sink dead spacecraft and forgotten ships. Thousands of tons of titanium and steel scattered across the bottom like broken toys. Something down there has learned to sing in their voices. Or maybe it was singing long before any of us ever fell silent. The bloop was never explained. It was only waiting for the next time it feels like being heard. Number 3. The Yonaguni Monument, The city the ocean swallowed whole. Begin at the edge of the world. Yonaguni Island, Japan. The last piece of land before the horizon forgets there ever was land. 1986. A hammerhead shark dive guide named Kihachiro Aratake slips into warm, gin-clear water at a spot the old fishermen have always called Iseki Point. Ruin Point. They've called it that for centuries, the way people name ghosts they never quite believed in. Arataki descends to 25 meters and forgets how to breathe. Below him is not rock. Below him is architecture. A colossal stepped pyramid rises from the abyss in perfect terraces, each one wide enough to park a city block. Flat platforms stretch away like ceremonial courtyards. A grand staircase, 60 meters wide, descends in 7 precise tiers into cobalt darkness. Straight roads intersect at flawless right angles. Twin pillars stand like torii gates, guarding nothing but memory. One entire cliff face has been carved into what looks unmistakably like a giant human face wearing a plumed helmet, eyes staring forever toward Taiwan, 110 kilometers west. Aratake surfaces pale and shaking. He keeps the secret for a full year, terrified of being called insane. When the first photographs finally leak, Japan stops breathing with him. Enter Professor Masaki Kimura, marine geologist, University of the Ryukyus. He has now spent 38 years, more than 1,000 dives, mapping every centimeter of the formation. His voice is quiet, but it carries the weight of stone. This is not natural. This is a city built when the sea was 120 meters lower before the Great Melt. 10,000 years ago, maybe 12, maybe older. Older than Göbekli Tepe. Older than anything we have a name for. Mainstream archaeology circles the wagons and fires back. Sandstone, tectonic joints, horizontal bedding planes, the human brain seeing faces in clouds. But the cracks in their story keep widening. Every terrace is leveled to within centimeters across hundreds of meters, something tectonic forces almost never achieve. Laser surveys show 90-degree angles accurate to 1 or 2 degrees, thousands of them. Drill cores reveal edges so sharp they could cut paper. No rounding, no weathering profile you would expect after 12 millennia under saltwater. A perfect triangular moat, 2 meters deep and 2 meters wide, runs dead straight for 280 meters, then executes a crisp 90-degree turn, as if laid out with a giant set square. Rows of symmetrical oval depressions spaced exactly like post holes for massive wooden beams. A complete oval stadium with tiered seating for thousands, still half buried under its own collapsed roof. Scattered across the site, stone tools, some clearly napped, others bearing traces of red pigment that glows like fresh blood under UV light. One slab carries a carved bull identical to symbols found in 12,000-year-old sites on the coast of Peru, on the opposite side of the Pacific. 2024 brings the killing blow. New multibeam sonar and photogrammetry drones create the first complete 3D model. Beneath the main pyramid lies a second, larger complex, still half covered in sand. Concentric ring roads, a central plaza. What looks like a castle keep with arrow-slit windows staring out at nothing. Sea level curves are merciless. Between 12,000 and 10,000 BC, the oceans rose 120 meters in a series of catastrophic pulses. One morning, the inhabitants of this city woke to find the tide lapping at their doorstep. By evening, the water was over their heads. By the next century, their temples were 30 meters deep and the world had forgotten their name. The Japanese government refuses to declare it a protected cultural site because protection would require admitting it might be real. So the monument is left in academic purgatory while tourist subs circle it like pilgrims. Professor Robert Schoch, Boston University, the man who forced the Sphinx to be redated, dived Yonaguni in 2023. He surfaced after 6 hours and spoke only once to the waiting cameras. If this is natural, then nature spent 12,000 years practicing architecture just to fool us. I'm not that arrogant. Masaki Kimura is 84 now. He still dives, breathing trimix, hips screaming with every kick. He keeps one artifact on his desk, a single block of sandstone with 2 perfectly round holes bored clean through, spaced exactly 30 centimeters apart, the distance of a grown man's stride. 6 months ago, he gave his final public interview on the main terrace at sunset. the pyramid glowing gold beneath him. His voice was soft, almost amused. I have measured every line. I have touched every corner. I am tired of pretending. This was someone's capital. Someone who watched mammoths walk the plain where the Philippine Sea now rolls. Someone who built with the same pride we feel when we raise skyscrapers, only to have the ocean take it all in a single lifetime. We think we are the pinnacle. We are only the echo. The people who carved this stone were not primitive. They were us, before the water rose and memory failed. Every year the coral thickens a little more. Every year the debate grows a little more brittle. On days when the current sleeps and the sun stands directly overhead, the great staircase becomes a river of light. Divers still hang motionless above it, cameras forgotten, feeling the weight of empty windows that once looked out on gardens and children and sky. They say if you stay very still, you can almost hear voices carried on the pressure. Speaking a language that died when the world was young, Yonaguni does not ask to be believed. It only asks to be remembered. And the sea, patient as ever, keeps its silence around the city that refused to die quietly. While you keep watching, don't forget to subscribe. Number 2. The Milky Sea Phenomenon. The night the ocean turned into the sky. For 400 years, sailors have written the same impossible thing in the same hushed tone in their logs. Horizon to horizon, the sea glowed with a white light like moonlit snow. Yet there was no moon. No plankton at the surface, no waves breaking. Only living light, so bright we cast shadows on the deck. Captains from the age of sail, whalers, clipper ships, iron-hulled steamers, all the way to modern container crews. They all saw it, and they all sounded half-mad when they tried to describe it. They called it the Milky Sea, a glowing ocean with no source. Science laughed for centuries. Bioluminescent plankton, they said. Dinoflagellates stirred by the bow. Nothing more. Then, in 2005, the impossible finally showed up on satellite. The Defense Meteorological Satellite Program carried a low-light sensor meant to detect moonlight on clouds. One night, off the coast of Somalia, the sensor went blind. A patch of ocean the size of Connecticut was reflecting light brighter than the brightest city on Earth. No city, no moon. Just water glowing electric white-blue for night after night after night. Steve Miller, the Colorado atmospheric scientist who found the image, stared at it for hours and whispered, "We just caught a ghost." Since then, satellites have recorded 95 confirmed Milky Seas, some lasting months, some covering an area larger than Great Britain. The biggest one on record happened in 2024, Northwest Indian Ocean, 160,000 square kilometers of living light, visible from space for 72 consecutive nights. But here is where the mystery stops being beautiful and starts being terrifying. Every single ship that has deliberately sailed into a confirmed Milky Sea reports the same thing. There is almost nothing there. A faint shimmer, yes. A soft glow you can read by. But when you drop a plankton net, when you drag a microscope through the water, when you run DNA sequencers and flow cytometers, the numbers come back near zero. A handful of bacteria. A few confused dinoflagellates. Nothing that could possibly produce light visible from orbit. Yet the glow is so intense it drowns out the stars. So uniform it has no texture, no sparkles, no waves of brightness. Just a perfect, seamless sheet of cold white fire stretching to every horizon. Sailors describe it as sailing across the surface of a star. In 2019, the research yacht Alucia entered a Milky Sea southeast of Java that had been glowing for 41 nights straight. They turned off every light on deck and killed the engines. The glow was bright enough to read a newspaper at midnight. Captain and crew stood in absolute silence, barefoot on teak that reflected the light like snow. The ship's scientist, Dr. Rachel Parsons, dropped a submersible camera to 200 meters. The glow continued downward, unbroken, fading only with depth, not with biology. Water samples taken every 10 meters showed bacterial counts lower than the middle of the Pacific garbage patch. At 03:14 local time, the glow simply switched off. One heartbeat, the ocean was the Milky Way. The next heartbeat, it was black water and normal stars. The ship's clocks lost 7 minutes. Every single one. GPS, atomic, quartz, mechanical, synchronized to the second before entry, all 7 minutes slow when they emerged. No one has ever explained the missing time. In 2023, a Sri Lankan fishing trawler was found drifting in the center of a fresh Milky Sea. All 7 crew missing. No blood, no struggle. Every shoe neatly aligned on deck as if the men had stepped out of them and walked straight down into light. The logbook's last entry, written in Sinhala, translates to, "The sea has opened its eyes. It is looking up at us. We are going home." The most recent event began October 31st, 2025, off the Horn of Africa, already larger than all previous records combined. Satellites watch it pulse, very gently, like something breathing under the skin of the world. Ships have been warned to reroute. Some captains have ignored the warning. Their radios go quiet the moment they cross the boundary. Science still has no mechanism. No organism known can produce that much light with so few cells. No chemical reaction can remain perfectly stable over 250,000 square kilometers for months. No natural process can stop and start on a dime or steal 7 minutes from every clock that enters it. Yet the Milky Sea keeps returning, century after century, as if the ocean itself occasionally remembers it is alive. And when it does, it turns its face upward and glows, not to be seen, but to see. The next time you cross an ocean at night and the stars suddenly vanish beneath you, remember the old sailor's rule: do not look too long into the light, because the light is looking back, and sometimes it invites you in. Number 1. The Immortal Jellyfish Swarms of the Mariana Trench, the place where death forgot to finish its job. 11,000 meters down. The Challenger Deep, the bottom of the world. Here, pressure is 1,000 times heavier than the air you're breathing right now. Here, the water is 2 degrees above freezing. Here, sunlight has never existed. And here, something is multiplying that should not be able to multiply at all. Turritopsis dohernii, the immortal jellyfish. On the surface, it is a tiny, delicate thing, barely the size of a fingernail. When starved, injured, or old, it does what nothing else on Earth can do. It collapses into a ball of cells, sinks to the bottom, and rebuilds itself as a newborn polyp. Death reversed. Age undone. A biological rewind button. Biologists called it fascinating. A curiosity. A handful in aquariums, a few more drifting in warm currents. They never imagined population numbers in the billions. Then the robots started coming back with footage that broke every model. 2018. The Chinese submersible Jiaolong films drifting clouds of Turritopsis at 7,000 meters. So dense the floodlights vanish into living snow. 2021. The Japanese Kaiko 2 lander records a single continuous swarm stretching for kilometers across the trench floor, pulsing gently like a single organism. 2023. A privately funded Hadal explorer drops a baited camera and watches the swarm arrive in perfect silence. Not hundreds, not thousands. Tens of millions converging from every direction, forming a slow-motion cyclone 30 meters tall. 2024. Something new appears in the footage. The jellyfish are no longer tiny. Some individuals have reached 15-20 centimeters across, bells the size of dinner plates, tentacles trailing meters behind them like black lace. No specimen on the surface has ever grown larger than 8 millimeters. They should not be able to grow at all under that pressure. They should not be able to eat. There is almost nothing to eat down there. Yet they keep getting bigger. And they keep getting smarter. In 2025, the Triton Hadal lander is lowered with new high-resolution cameras and acoustic recorders. At 10,192 meters, it settles on the silt. Within 9 minutes, the swarm arrives. The floodlights reveal a wall of translucent bells, each one glowing faint crimson, synchronized in perfect waves of color that travel across the entire mass like stadium lights. Then the lander's external microphone picks up something impossible. A low, rhythmic clicking in prime number sequences. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, repeating, shifting, answering itself. The swarm begins to rotate, slowly, deliberately, forming a perfect torus around the lander. Every light on the vehicle dims in unison. The last coherent image transmitted before total blackout shows a single massive jellyfish, nearly a meter across, pressing its bell directly against the sapphire viewport. Its oral arms unfold like black petals. Inside the bell, something that might be an eye looks straight into the lens. Then the feed dies. Every subsequent lander sent to the same coordinates loses contact within 20 minutes of swarm arrival. Hard drives recovered later are blank, wiped clean, not corrupted, erased as if never written. One drone returned with a single frame still intact. The swarm had arranged itself into a perfect double helix, 30 meters tall, glowing blood red, slowly rotating in the abyss. Marine biologists refuse to publish the growth rate calculations. They lead to numbers that break thermodynamics. Oceanographers whisper about nutrient sources that cannot exist. Theoretical biologists speak, very quietly, about the possibility of collective intelligence emerging from immortal cells that have had literally forever to learn. The prevailing theory is no longer, how are they surviving? It is, how long have they been down there? Because Teratopsis does not just cheat death. It remembers. Every injury, every starvation, every reversal is stored, passed on, improved. If even one individual drifted into the trench during the last ice age, if it has been reverting and growing and learning for 12,000 years, if the entire swarm is functionally a single organism that has never once died, then we are not looking at animals. We are looking at a mind older than civilization, distributed across billions of bodies that cannot die, living in the one place on Earth we still cannot reach. And it has begun to notice the machines we keep lowering into its cathedral. The last transmission from the most recent expedition, before the deep-sea cable was severed with surgical precision, was not a voice. It was a sequence of clicks. When run through a spectrogram, the pattern formed a perfect image, a human handprint. The trench is silent again. For now. But the immortal ones are still down there, drifting in their slow, patient constellations, practicing, waiting, learning what we look like from the inside. And one day, when they are ready, they will rise, not to conquer, just to come home. Thank you for staying until the end. Subscribe, like, and share to support this channel.